Good evening. This is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. I'm also the president of United in Peace, Inc., and this is going to be a real interesting show. So much has happened. We know that God be the glory. Bill Cosby was freed. There's a lot that's been happening in City Hall when you see everybody is complaining, saying, why did we have to see a public display of two women, African American women, arguing with one another over the fact that the Robert Rules of Order were violated, and the fact that they were holding up the confirmation of a woman of color who was about to be put in charge of the law department in City Council. At City Hall, trying to eradicate that pinstripe patronage that has been charging taxpayers to defend cases that they know that they cannot defend. And the fact that the African American woman, Miss Young, that everyone has seen the video where white police officers went into the wrong apartment, raided it, knew it was the wrong department, but they stood there with the video cameras going on their vests or whatever they had their cameras at, and showed the woman being naked as if she was on display during a slave auction. Excuse me. And the alderman, Miss Taylor, from the 20th Ward, felt like the woman of color that was there to get confirmed to take over the law department, to get rid of patronage, pinstripe patronage, was a woman that refused to settle with Miss Young. And I can understand that because there's another individual by the name of Mark Maxson. He has a certificate of innocence, and he also has a case that's indefensible. And we're going to talk about that because the individual that committed the crime has made a plea deal after Mark Maxson had did almost 28 years in the penitentiary for a crime he didn't commit. Mark Maxson is free, and the guy that did the murder here in May of this year has been sentenced to 50 years. So with that, without further ado, I want to also say that this show was made possible because of the help of the chairman of United in Peace. He's also the producer and helped me to find the topics to discuss before you, the viewing and the listening audience. And she is none other than my wife, and I'm blessed by God to have her as my wife, Terry Marsh Bradley. And it couldn't happen without the technical showmanship, for lack of a better phrase, of Brother Omari. So with that, let me say to God be the glory. And Omari, let's go to work.
firing that gun. Innocent bystanders. We asking the community, ostracize them, push them out, don't let them hide anywhere, don't support them, and let law enforcement do their job.
The code is this. If you pick up that gun to solve your problem, I'm not endorsing violence. I'm saying you're violating the code if you discharge that weapon and innocent people get shot or killed, especially a child or an elderly person. And the community must uphold that code.
He got a shoe shine.
The reason that it worked in the 90s, because everyone was a part of it. Kids, women, elderly, was off limits.
Didn't touch him.
Didn't touch them.
By ostracizing from the community, pushing you out of the community, not supporting you in the community or protecting you in the community, so that law enforcement can do their job by apprehending. And the Cook County State's Attorney can do her job by making sure that you get a fair prosecution. This is so that there's no retaliation in the community because you discharge or you fire that weapon at your attendant or attendant partner.
We all got to come together and let it be black lives everywhere. Regardless if the police somebody that's black, twice as much on black.
With at least 8 children under the age of 10 shot in the city in just 2 weeks, some are asking if that code still carries any weight.
This is something that we got to do.
Gator catches up with some friends on Calumet.
That 1-year-old that got killed.
His conversations lately have focused on kids getting shot. He says the rule still applies.
We as men got to put it down and say, that still exists. It never left.
We all got a responsibility.
We all got a responsibility, man.
But it never left.
We're all brothers. You know what we do? Put the word on the street that this is no longer tolerated. And homes work together, and we know how it works. We've been able to help get them out for law enforcement to come and arrest them. Now is the time. Just like it was a video from Miss Frazier, let everybody know about the wake of George Floyd. Somebody got a video, or we need to use our video, stop this senseless violence.
And I believe that vengeance belongs to the Lord. And with that, I want to say, God be the glory. That's my story. You know, that was done last year, 4th of July weekend. We're coming up on another 4th of July weekend. But there's things that has happened. Last week, 78 people shot in a weekend of gun violence in Chicago. A third of them from 4 mass shootings, not one. 4 mass shootings. I think it was about 5 deaths. Let me see this right here. Chicago police worked somewhere at least 5 people were shot in the 2000 block of East, no, 6 people in the 2000 block of East 71st in the South Shore neighborhood, late Sunday, June 27, 2021. 6 people. 10 people were killed and 68 others were wounded in a weekend, last weekend. It was June 27, between June 27 and 28. 10 people were shot. Second mass shooting. 10 people were, 68 others were wounded in a weekend shooting. 10 people killed in Chicago as the city reaches the halfway point of what could be one of the most violent years in decades. 4 of the attacks were mass shootings with 4 or 5 people wounded. The attacks accounted for nearly a third of all the shooting victims between Friday evening and early Monday morning. It's just my 2 cents and my opinion, for whatever it's worth. I believe you saw the code where senseless shootings and killing. I'm not advocating no violence. Just talking about a code. It's just my opinion and look at it as a piece of fabric to be sewed into a blanket for peace and a solution to helping to aid the senseless in the senseless violence shooting in our. You heard the code where senseless shootings and killing, senseless violence, senseless shootings and killing are not to be tolerated. We can't hide the individual that's involved in senseless shootings and killing. Senseless shootings and killing, where innocent individuals end up getting murdered or shot because someone is mad with someone else and have a beef with one another. I'm not advocating violence. I think if an individual got a beef, he should reach out to someone and talk to someone to see if the beef can be squashed. But if it's just them beefing with one another, the violence becomes senseless because individuals end up being harmed and murdered, and they had nothing to do with the beef. And I'm of the opinion that's how the mass shootings happen. Senseless violence, shootings, and killing. The raping and abuse of women and children. The disrespect and the robbing of the elderly is a no-no across the board and can't be accepted by no one. And I believe if the mayor supports the code, if the governor supports the code, if the county board president supports the code, if the state's attorney supports the code, if the superintendent support the code, if all the fraternities and sororities support the code, okay? If the spiritual leadership, be they Jewish, be they Catholics, be they Muslim, support the code. If the business leaders support the code, and by them supporting the code, it don't cost them any money. But it's showing where it takes all of us to be like-minded and purposely focused so that the individual know that when they violate that code, there's no way for them anywhere to hide. It worked in the 90s. It's not just my idea. It was Prince Asiel that reached out to all those entities then that I just named and wasn't afraid to make it where the brothers in the various communities and street organizations and behind the walls became a piece of the fabric to the blanket that was known as United in Peace. That's why this organization that I'm about, United in Peace Inc., is 20 plus years, over 25 years in
After
existence.
two separate mass shootings. Follow the breaking news.
And I haven't received a dime from them entities. Everyone else getting the millions of dollars, and they may be deserving of it for what they do. But even those organizations got to support the code. If they seeing us locking the circle and saying, we supporting this code, you can't keep saying that you against the violence. We got to do something about the violence. And every time you say that, and every time you say we got to do something, and the things that you're trying ain't working. I'm not talking about theory. Constantly. Here we are a year later. From all the little kids that got killed last year, to those that have gotten killed so far this year. And we're looking for more of the same this July 4th weekend. So let's do that I just spoke of, along with the other things that you're doing. And I believe that it would help turn the tide on the violence, because the individual that's engaged in the violence will realize there's no way for them to hide. I don't care if they're a family member, because there's no way in the world you can see these babies getting killed. Because the individual that do it, they come back in the neighborhood and they terrorize the community. And I'm saying this because it's getting ready to happen. Everything is being in plan. When you see the president saying I got to do something, I'm hearing what the mayor in Chicago is saying, I'm hearing what the mayor in California is saying, I'm hearing what the mayor in New York is saying, and we got to do something. We're going to send our resources. And the resources that they're going to be using is the same type of resources that they're using to apprehend those domestic terrorists. That's what they call them, that attacked the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Pelosi just agreed to this January 6th committee to find out what really happened, to make what happened on January 6th. The community is fed up, and therefore they don't care out of fear. They don't care about individuals having their rights protected because they feel like the people that's doing the shooting and killing don't care nothing about the innocent people that's getting shot and killed right to pursuit of happiness, a right to live, a right to mourn, a right to go to school, a right to sit in the park, a right to have class reunion. Everyone is talking about it. It ain't just Gator. Everyone is talking about it and coming to this same solution that I'm sharing with you. I'm sharing with you what I am hearing for the people. So brothers, hear me, because they did it to us. And that's what brought about the 1994 crime bill. And that's what ended up bringing the criminal justice reform after the bogus crime bill. Because people was tired of the crack wars. Tell you what I'm talking about, just Google it. You got brothers and sisters coming home now. And they tired because they missed a lot of their children's funeral. And some of the guys, they grandkids, Everybody is fed up and they're tired. But it takes all of us. Man, all y'all got to do is just agree to support the code. Y'all don't even have to be in the same room. Just say you in support of the code and the enforcement of the code. Because it's generated by the people. Not law enforcement, by the people. And the mayor will realize that she's a part of the people movement. The governor, the county board president, the aldermen, the state reps, the state senators, the Cook County commissioners, the state's attorney, the superintendent. Won't be nowhere for them to hide. Because I'm finding out from what I'm in the community, from the streets to the suites, they realizing a lot of the shooting was over nothing. That couldn't have been talked about and squashed. But because the people that have the beef, innocent individuals end up getting shot and killed. And here come the street justice in the form of retaliation. Or here comes street justice that's tired of telling them, stop. Brother Amari, let me see this video right here.
News of another deadly and violent weekend in Chicago. More than a dozen people are in the hospital right now after two separate mass shootings. CBS 2's Mugo Digwe live at police headquarters with what we know so far. Mugo?
Yeah, so we know 2 women are dead, and right now 15 other people are in the hospital from this shooting, and we know a 15-year-old boy is one of those victims. So right now you're looking at video. This is from the most recent of the 2 mass shootings. This is near 63rd and Artesian in Chicago Lawn. You can see paramedics putting someone into an ambulance here. There's even a shoe on the ground. 11 people were shot in this incident. One woman who was shot in her chest died on scene. 10 other people were rushed to various hospitals. Chicago police say the victims were outside at about 10:53 last night when 3 guys came out of an alley and shot into the crowd. Now, here is video. This is from the earlier mass shooting. This one happened in the South Shore neighborhood just before 8:45 last night. Police say 6 people, they were standing near 71st and Jeffrey when someone in a black SUV drove by and then started shooting into that crowd. One woman, she was shot 6 times throughout her body. She died from her injuries. We know 5 other people, including that 15-year-old boy I mentioned, they were hit as well. Now, all of those 5 victims are in the hospital right now. They are in stable condition. That's the good news out of all of this. But we know of those 2 mass shootings, so far, no one has been arrested. Well, I'm outside CPD headquarters. Mugo Digwe, CBS 2 News.
That is showing you what I'm telling you. That is terrorist activity. Only because 2 individuals had a beef with one another. Communities on lockdown. But everybody are now listening and learning, reading and sharing, and putting last suspects whose names are ringing on blast. I spoke earlier about the dispute between Mayor Taylor and our mayor, Lori Lightfoot. They were about to have a vote on renaming Lakeshore Drive for DuSable as the city council adjourned amid fight over Mayor Lori Lightfoot's new law department nominee. Could you take that up a little bit, Mari? Right there. Aldermen on Wednesday temporarily derailed Mayor Lori Lightfoot's appointment of a new top city lawyer over the law department's treatment of Ms. Young and her lawsuit over an infamous botched police raid. Despite again delayed and expected vote on a plan to rename Chicago's storied Lakeshore Drive in honor of the city's black founder, John Baptiste Point DuSable. When the city council began the usually ceremonial process of considering Lightfoot's nomination of Miss Sheila, I believe that's her name, Meza, as corporate counsel. Okay, as the corporate counsel. Southwest Side Alderman Raymond Lopez announced he and South Side Alderman Taylor would be deferring the action in light of everything going on with Miss Young. Now, I can see that. I can understand that. Because if you're about to confirm someone, you want them to really be about the business of doing what's right to end and eradicate that pinstripe patronage that's been robbing the city. Robbing the city. What you mean robbing the city, Gator? A lot of them lawyers are charging the city $200 to $300 an hour to do motions that they know not going nowhere. To put in paperwork, something they got to do, depose this person and depose that person, knowing that none of those cases will be going to court or to trial because all of them that has ended up costing the city of Chicago in the tens of millions of dollars when they could have settled, because a lot of the settlements are paid by the insurance that the city is paying. Let me say that again. A lot of the money that's paying a lot of these settlements is based on the fact that the city has an insurance policy to pay off some of them settlements. I know what I'm talking about because they did it with Aaron Patterson's settlement when about 4 or 5 of them came together. I was instrumental in helping Aaron Patterson to get his share out of $19 million. I ain't just talking. I was his urban translator. I'm not just running off at the jibs. We're talking about solutions to make this city better for everyone. You can't keep having these are private lawyers. What you need a private lawyer for, and you got a law department. That's because the private lawyers used to work for the law department, and then they resign or they leave the law department, go into private practice, and come back and talk to their friends that's still there and set up the payment thing. But they cannot win a case where an individual has a certificate of innocence. They have won not one. And we're going to get into that too. But we're going to be this here. They could have settled with Miss Young for the wrong that they done. And the thing that gets me, this happened under Mayor Rahm. It didn't happen under this mayor. This mayor is catching heat for something that happened up under Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Why take his weight in heat when you promise this constructive criticism to the mayor? Because we got to help him. We got to help our elected officials when they get elected and say they're going to clean up government. We got to help them by telling them where the mess is at. Go clean up the mess. So the mayor feels that she can do this with the Miss Mazza. But Miss Mazza got off on the wrong foot. She could have went in there, settled that case for the right thing to do. Because the city is up in arms behind witnessing that video. They can settle the Mark Maxson case because they can't win it. Had they settled it earlier, it wouldn't have probably cost the city the money that it's going to cost them to settle now, because they can't dare go to court with it. Or the city going to end up having to pay $20+ million. That's a budgetary matter. But you got to get rid of them bad patronage, pinstripe patronage lawyers that's up there. Robbing the city. Robbing the city. The millions of dollars that they got to pay because of police misconduct. Man, I done lost count of the millions that they paying to them lawyers. So man, new law department, settle with Miss Young. Let's get to the next story, Kari. This man right here, he was sentenced to 50 years. Osborne Wade was in charge with Lindsay Murdoch, which was a child murder, until 2016. Another man, Mark Maxson, who spent nearly 2 decades plus some years in prison for the crime until his conviction was vacated. It was in 2016. Here we are 5 years later, and this man gets 50 years in a plea deal because all the evidence and the DA belonged to him. Mark Masson. You take it up a little bit, Carter. Omari. Thanks, man. A little bit more. Right there. Osborne Wade wasn't charged with Lindsay Murdoch's murder until 2016. Another man, Mark Masson, would spend nearly 2 decades in prison for a crime until his conviction was vacated. Before Wade was sentenced by the Cook County judge, this was in May of this year. I think May 24th or May 25th of this year. Judge Peggy Chambers on Tuesday. Prosecutors dropped 2 counts of murder against the 47-year-old Wade. The state's attorney's office concluded that based on the evidence and the law, it was appropriate to resolve this case with a plea agreement and agreed prison sentence. Okay? I went to Stateville with Mark's lawyer and his mother. Drove up to the door of the Stateville Penitentiary. This is key. I did my bit in the Stateville Penitentiary. And by the grace of God, I got a pardon. And by God's mercy and grace and using me and others like me to go back behind the wall and bring the wrongfully convicted out. That's why I always say to God be the glory. To bring this man out, knowing when he got out, I helped him to get his ID. He had the necessary paperwork. We went to the Secretary of State, Jesse White's office. We went to see the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State had his staff to make sure everything was in place and allowed him to get his ID. Not only that, he became a registered voter. And to show that he was a free man, he went and voted. His life was taken away. I was instrumental in helping him to get his compensation, which was $250,000, which all of them that come out is the scale for how long they've been in there of money that the state has to give them. Worked with him and his lawyer. And I'm glad that the judge allowed him to get his certificate of innocence. That means he's not responsible for the crime. Innocent. That's why you see this on my chest about elect these judges. You got to have judges. You got to know who running for judges to know what they're doing. And before we get out of here, because time is running short, you're going to see what the Supreme Court did for Bill Cosby. Justice. They need to settle with Mark Maxson too. Could you play this right here, Omari?
He came from Italy with nothing for a new life.
He said
Here you go.
Day. We're going to begin tonight with breaking news about the disgraced comedian and television star Bill Cosby. As we come on the air, the 83-year-old is out of prison and back at his home after Pennsylvania's Supreme Court threw out his 2018 conviction for sexually assaulting a woman in the same house more than a decade ago. Now, in a ruling that stunned prosecutors as well as the dozens of women who have accused Cosby of drugging and raping them. The state's highest court argued the entertainer's due process rights were violated when he gave incriminating testimony against himself during a civil case, testimony that was later used against him in court. Now, Cosby, the judges said, only talked because a previous prosecutor had agreed not to charge him. Well, tonight, the former sitcom star is refusing to talk on camera, but in an exclusive off-camera interview just moments ago, Cosby talked to CBS's Jerika Duncan. And Jerika is live outside of Cosby's house in Pennsylvania tonight. And Jerika, what did Cosby tell you?
Well, put it frankly, Nora, he basically said that this is about sending a message around the world. He said that what happened to him was unjust and that justice was served.
A triumphant Bill Cosby, flanked by his attorneys, flashed the victory sign as a free man, upending the first high-profile sexual assault case of the Me Too era. In a strongly worded 79-page opinion, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that Cosby, now 83, had been denied a fair trial in 2018, a huge blow to his many accusers. Cosby was nearly 3 years into a 3 to 10 year sentence for aggravated indecent assault against former Temple University employee Andrea Constand. He was charged with drugging and sexually assaulting Constand in his Philadelphia area home in 2004. Explaining their decision, the justices wrote that prosecutors engaged in a bait and switch because of a non-prosecutorial agreement that had been struck with a previous prosecutor. The agreement gave Cosby the assurance that he would not be criminally prosecuted if he testified in a civil case brought by Constand. But that's what happened. Cosby testified in a civil lawsuit that he gave quaaludes to women he was pursuing for sex, evidence that was later used against him.
We can't have a criminal justice system where prosecutors pull out the rug from underneath you because of politics.
CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman said today's court decision was based on the law, though it will be unpopular.
People will feel abandoned, particularly victims of sexual assault. They will feel that the court, quote unquote, let him out on a technicality. This is not a technicality. It's a violation of constitutional magnitude.
All right. The beloved comedian and actor was best known for his role as the lovable husband and father in The Cosby Show. But his family-friendly reputation was left in tatters as more than 60 accusers came forward. For Victoria Valentino, who says Cosby raped her in 1969, the news was gut-wrenching.
It's just astounding. It sends the message that the law is not on our side. Once again, women have been just thrown under the bus.
Cosby accuser Andrea Constand released a statement today saying the decision she found it to be disappointing and concerned about how this will impact other sexual assault victims. Nora?
And Jerika, I want to know more about your exclusive interview. What happened when you went inside Cosby's house?
You know, we asked if there was an opportunity to speak to Cosby personally. His publicist walked me here at this driveway into the home. What I walked in was the first floor, the kitchen area. There were two people standing by. One person said Cosby wanted pizza for dinner tonight. The publicist then went upstairs and I guess asked Mr. Cosby, Bill Cosby, if we could come up there and talk to him. We were upstairs in his bedroom for about 5 minutes or so. He was wrapping up a conversation with someone. He seemed very excited, obviously, to be home, very comfortable. But his takeaway really was he was glad that he had his freedom and said that this sends a message around the world. I know he just tweeted a very similar message, but that is what he focused on during that very short 5 minutes with him today.
All right, Jerika Duncan with that CBS News exclusive. Thank you.
You know,
this is Martha's hometown. This is what Martha.
The fact of the matter is this. Those prosecutors They knew what was agreed to. They knew that they were denying him his constitutional right. The judge knew that this was happening. He could have stopped all that where it wouldn't have been a jury trial or nothing. Hey, you can't do this. The appellate court knew this. The Supreme Court knew this. And that's why the decision came down. For the women who allegedly say that they were the victim, I wasn't there. I can't say. But for those that had anything to do with the Playboy Bunny House or whatever it is, athletes, doctors, lawyers, school teachers, everybody went in and got any data, met up with anybody at the Playboy Bunny House, knew what that was all about. But you cannot violate an individual's constitutional right. Mark Maxson was tortured by bad police officers. And they knew this to get a confession. He was tortured. And they knew that these officers were bad police officers. But the state's attorneys at the time was engaged in the cover-up. They went all the way to the state's attorney that became the mayor. They knew they was wrong. But there's a higher power. And that's God. There's people saying they probably didn't want Bill Cosby to be able to buy NBC. I don't know. I wasn't there. Just sharing what I heard and what I read. But back to local, it's 2022 election. It's very important for all of us as a people. Get registered to vote. I thank God that we ain't having the same problem in Illinois that they're having in over more than 30 other states where they're trying to suppress the vote. Because this show is going to be YouTube and going to be shared out to everywhere, I'm sharing with everyone in these United States that's having that problem. Be purposely focused as we were when people was dying for us to get the right to vote. Do what got to be done to cast your vote. We can't have no pity party thinking that the Republican Party is going to get right. It ain't happening. It's not happening. Only thing going to change it is that we come out there and vote. If they say you got to have your IDs, have your IDs. If they say you can't take somebody's vote there unless you're a family member, whatever the rules are that they allow us to play and deal with, do it. Be properly prepared. Proper planning prevents poor performance. You seeing what I'm saying? Criminal justice reform will not work if you got the biased and racist judges on the bench. from the local courts to the appellate court in your locality, to the Supreme Court in your locality, to the federal court, to the federal appeals court, to the United States Supreme Court in order to get justice. With that, I want to say there's a young lady you're going to hear about. Her name is Sophia Diaz. And what a judge in her case did was illegal to the point that she may have benefited from it, but a friend of hers was benefiting from it, the decision that she made. And you're going to hear about it because we're dealing with verifiable, documented fact. What that judge did was wrong. You're going to be hearing about it. Her name is Sophia Diaz. Husband brought her from Great Britain. She became a legal resident of the United States and resided in Chicago. And a friend of hers had to reach out to me and others. And in their business, I'm just telling their story because fairness in the judiciary is a must. It ain't always the color, because you got some black judges that are just as bad as white judges. So with that, I want to say, let us pray for our babies and children. Let us pray to God that this 4th of July don't be worse than last week shooting. It don't be worse than last July. And may we tell all our elected officials and all our pastors, all our business leaders, and all our fraternity and sorority brothers, and our Masonic brothers, and our Eastern Star sisters, support the code. Because the code didn't come from Gator, they y'all hating on it. The code came from other individuals that was willing to stand up regardless what organizations they were in. If Larry wasn't mad with Shorty, the individuals representing Larry and Shorty didn't have a right to fight. If Jeff Ford wasn't mad at Mr. Rico, then Vice Lord and Stone didn't have a reason to fight. Because the community and all those entities, stakeholders, supported the code. That's all we got to do. That's where it started. And then all the resources gonna come into the community to help make community and society better for all of us. With that, I want to say to God be the glory. That's Gator's story.